Hello everyone, this is Atman Nityananda. Today I would like to speak a little bit about self-awareness as a constant way of living, moment by moment, every day. Self-awareness means to be aware of the silent space of consciousness within ourselves. Does not mean aware of the thoughts, emotions. This is not self-awareness. It's awareness of our psyche, of our mind at all levels. However, since we consider our mind and body as ourselves, we can also use this term self-awareness in relation to thoughts, emotions, etc. But the true meaning of this term self-awareness is related to our true self, the silent space of consciousness and the sense I am, or I amness, or beingness. Being aware of myself is the foundation of all spiritual practice and self-knowledge. If we are not aware, if we are not attentive moment by moment, we easily identify with the constant streaming of thoughts and emotional reactions and imagination and fantasies that the mind creates without a break, we could say. Our mind is so well programmed and constantly produces thoughts about everything, and not only about things that happen in the moment, but things of the past and the future. And most of them create stress and anxiety because thoughts related to desires, attachments, fears, and worries. So instead of living moment by moment in a state of fullness and peace and enjoy life, we live in a state of uneasiness, incompleteness, of lack, and dissatisfaction, which may not be a very strong, hard, or a strong suffering. But anyway, in my experience, any other state, inner state, different than peace, is some kind of suffering. So the only way to avoid identification with the streaming of thoughts and emotions, etc., and also sensory experiences, is to develop this capacity to remain aware of the inner silent space of consciousness, which is the substratum or the background of all other experiences. Whether these experiences are psychological or sensory experiences. All these experiences appear in the inner space of consciousness or awareness. In my case, I use these terms with the same connotation, awareness or consciousness. I'm conscious of something, I'm aware of something. To me, it's the same thing. And also there is the pure consciousness or awareness, which is the silent space of consciousness. And there is also the reflected consciousness, which is the sense I am, or I amness, which is very well known by the great famous teacher known as Nisargadatta Maharaj. He spoke a lot about I amness, about the pure awareness and I amness. And he usually used the term consciousness in relation to I amness and the mind. He had a very specific terminology. However, I use awareness and consciousness with the same meaning. And I speak about pure awareness or pure consciousness and reflected awareness or consciousness. And also, awareness has to do with the experience to be aware of something. I am aware of my fear. I am aware of my thoughts. I am aware of my body. This is the capacity to experience consciously my body, my psychological state, whatever may be. So, without attentiveness and self-awareness, we easily identify with the context, with the content of psychological world and the content of the physical world. These are both contents of consciousness or in consciousness. So the only way to avoid this identification, which is for me the foundation and the necessary, necessary state to avoid identification and also to experience our divine nature. Vole Baba ki jai. Vole Baba ki jai. There is no other way to experience peace and freedom than to be aware of the inner silent space of consciousness, which is always free and whole, full, and peaceful. This is our true nature. So, why to be self-aware? Because there is no other way to experience peace. And why more? Because this is the only way to avoid identification with the expressions of the egoic self in the mind as thoughts, imaginations, emotions, etc. The moment we identify ourselves with something, we lose connection with the inner self, the silent space of consciousness. That means we lose the experience of peace and plenitude. There is no other way. Okay, happiness or joyfulness can be experienced if something happens, but this is something that happens in the is superficial and comes and goes. The peace of our inner self or divine essence never comes and never goes. It's constant. And it's always it remains as the background of our experience. The point is that we forget ourselves in the experience and we forget to be aware of our true nature. So there is no other way to get out from identification and the experience of duality in the mostly psychological duality, duality of joy and grief, pleasure, pain, calmness of the mind, agitation of the mind. We can get rid of this duality if we fail to connect or if we don't connect with the factor element that is beyond duality, and it is always whole, full, peaceful, blissful, and free. And this is the silent space of consciousness. And to be aware of this silent space of consciousness, it is called self-awareness. Self-awareness gives us two things: happiness of the eternal, unlimited happiness or bliss of the divine essence, and also freedom, peace, and love. And also is the only way to avoid identification from the psychological reactions. That's why we must develop this capacity to remain self-aware moment by moment. And the best way for me is to repeat a mantra, Om Namah Shivaya, which means I bow to the divine consciousness. which is myself. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, and associate this repetition with the silent space of consciousness, so that will be created a habit that will help us remain aware of the inner silence. That means that the association of the mantra with the silence helps us to maintain awareness of the inner silence. By repeating the mantra, the association of the mantra with the silence will help us, when we repeat the mantra, to remain aware of the inner silence, self-awareness. So, one of the ways to remain in self-awareness is to repeat the mantra. The second is to repeat affirmations of our true self. Consciousness I am, silence I am, Om consciousness, Om silence, Om consciousness, Om silence. Constantly, to become a habit as well. And every time, each time a reaction, emotional, mental reaction occurs, then we use to whom this reaction occurs, to me. Who am I? And we go inwards to the silence. So we experience the silence and we continue repeating the mantra, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, or we repeat consciousness I am, peace I am, Om consciousness, Om peace, Om silence. This is what I wanted to share with you. I wish you peace, love, and light, and develop this capacity to remain consciously aware of your divine essence and experience peace, love, and light.